Good news though, I was close to the end of my dissertation. I had one more heading that I had to fill out under. I deleted it from done.
Don't be worried about Congratulations.
Thank you. They were for me yesterday. I watched the presentation in the afternoon. I think it's that.
Okay, 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Start with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lemhi tribes, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout San Juan Island and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack and Lemhi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any changes to the agenda?
Nope. Good to go.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve the agenda is ready.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Good of the order.
Alrighty, as I mentioned when I came in, the good of the order is a little bit longer because it's been a month since we've seen each other. So first off, just want to share that we've been doing some bike education classes in our elementary PE sections. I've seen some great photos from that, so it's been fun to watch. And kudos to Mrs. Rossman for her work to get that coordinated, and as well as our PE teachers. The kids have been having a great time with the bike education classes. The Mountbaker plant sale begins next week with online ordering on April 29th. I especially wanted to bring this up here in a public meeting because our reader board on the highway is not functioning correctly. So we're going to try some alternative methods for communicating because that's a big thing every year is that plant sale. Celebrating that our Mountaineer band went to Disneyland and had a good time down there. Got to see some pictures and videos. It looks like they did well there on that trip. And at the end of March, our FFA Ag Mechanics team placed second at the state competition with individual results of Caden Mosier placing 5th, Wyatt Freeman placing 6th, Brady Bruin 24th, and Jace Goff and Wyatt Zender also placed in the top 40. That competition had 132 students with 32 teams from across the state. And in April, our FFA Environmental and Natural Resources team competed for the first time in 5 years. And actually, it was the first time Ryan Meyer had coached the team. And so kind of fun. They placed 5th in the State Environmental and Natural Resources Career Development event. Some individual highlights. Mikhail Fairbanks finished 12th overall. Merrick Kelly finished 17th overall, with Brady Bruin and Alyssa DeRocco finishing in the top 40. Specifically within the water quality practicum, we had Brady Bruin take 1st and Mikhail Fairbanks taking 2nd. So kudos to our FFA teams.
Nice.
That's what I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, now the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Information from Natalie.
That's good. That was quick.
I had a feeling you signed up.
Hello, my name is Natalie Chavez. Thank you for listening to public comments this evening. At the last meeting that I attended, I spoke in opposition of biological males playing in girls' sports and using girls' locker rooms and bathrooms. I also mentioned that a 15-year-old girl in Tumwater got injured in February by a large, tall 18-year-old biological male who fell on top of her while playing in her JV basketball game. I watched the replay of that portion of the basketball game, and it was pretty disturbing. The girl then got up with assistance by her teammate and limped off of the court. I encourage you all to review the website shewon.org. That's SHEWON.org. That website is dedicated to archiving the achievements of female athletes who were displaced by biological males in female sporting events and other types of competitions expressly for females. The website states, quote, "One day soon, we hope their accomplishments will be recognized," unquote. The achievements of females displaced by biological males include awards, medals, records, scholarships, and other opportunities. Again, it is my hope that you will look at potential solutions for trans student athletes so that they feel included in sports if they choose to play sports in school. Perhaps a trans league for trans athletes or trans PE class offered at each public school. Many women, including numerous feminists, some of whom are now deceased, fought very hard for equal rights for biological females to play in competitive sports with other biological females. I imagine that some of them, if they could, would be rolling over in their graves, pissed off, if they knew that there are biological males identifying as females who are now playing in female sports and taking away awards, medals, records, and scholarships from biological females. Thank you for your time.
Okay, presentations. So, Ian?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Do I have shared access? If I can see that. Just going to presentation up on the screen. Okay, share for a second. Okay, so good evening, everybody. The focus of my presentation tonight is to give you an update on Title VI, or our American Indian Education Program. Just a short presentation to describe kind of where we're at, where we're going, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay. Let's see if I can. Okay, there we go. Got to find the right button. Thanks for your patience. So back in 1965, with the civil rights legislation that was enacted, tied to the war on poverty, title was originally Title VII. The intent of the Indian Education Program was to support American Indian students, Alaska Native students, to assist them with supports to both cultural identity, language, and academic achievement. And as I said, it did shift from Title VII to Title VI when there was restructuring with the federal language. But our Title VI program supports our American Indian students in trying to help support managing challenging state student academic achievement standards that other students have to complete as well. With regard to enrollment, so our families need to complete a 506 form, which allows us to identify American Indian or Alaska Native students. And in the 24-25 school year, we identified 136. And that funding generated about a 22% increase to $44,541. That's the most we've ever received as a district. So a little shout out to Sherry Reynolds. She's been instrumental in kind of going through and verifying all of our 506 forms, connecting with the Nooksack tribe, and the work she's done has been pretty significant. I've been really appreciative of her work to tend to all the paperwork aspects of the work. So. An essential core component of Title VI is to work alongside our parents. And the federal legislation calls it an Indian Parent Committee, an IPC committee. Our parents have kind of leaned toward the idea of calling it a parent advisory committee, so we call it a PAC meeting. And with that, we meet right now 3 times a year. Our hope is to increase that. You'll see the essential duties listed up there, and they're really important. And as our parents learn and engage in the opportunities to influence how the district works, it's the committee is going to grow, and it's going to become more of an influence on how we support our NUCSAC students and really all American Indian students here at Mount Baker. One of the unique things tied to our PAC committee, we kind of have 2 in 1. So NUCSAC Valley supports around 40% of the American Indian students, or I should say NUCSAC students, and we have about 60% of the students that comprise the NUCSAC tribe. And with that, we've decided to kind of work together. So we bring both our PACs together and have mutual discussions that overlap into a lot of different topics that parents want to discuss. And we found that this collaboration has been pretty powerful. So we have NUCSAC Valley, NUCSAC Tribe, and Mount Baker all working together to do this. Not every school district has it set up this way, but we found that my work with Kim McGee at NUCSAC has been really instrumental too, in just how we plan out and support these meetings moving forward. Again, our hope is to increase our partnership and to increase the meetings. We'd like to get to monthly meetings if possible, but coordinating times right now has been challenging.
How many parents participate?
So that's growing. Right now, our last meeting, we had a total of 12. Yeah.
That's more than you get at most PTA meetings. Oh, that's good.
And right now, those meetings are occurring on the Timber Ridge grounds.
Nice.
We've talked about moving in different locations, but right now that's been where parents want to be. So we're going to work with them.
Yeah.
We share a meal each time. We share lunch. It's been good. All right. And I wanted to cover a little bit of some of the great things that we're doing this school year. So Title VI funds primarily support 2 things, our work in supporting attendance, so increasing attendance rates for our NUCSAC students, along with providing academic supports. And so what our Title VI funding does this year, it's about $36,000. They partially fund multilingual paraeducators in all of our schools. So we have paraeducators who they'll work with multilingual students, and they'll be paid out of different pots of funds in order to do that. And the primary focus is academic interventions in or out of the classroom, as well as at our secondary level, we have the wonderful Jolene Basden, who's providing homework support after school for students who want to engage and during that time when things like drama or sports aren't interfering with the opportunity to connect after school. So that's where primarily our funds are spent. We also set aside funds in Title VI to support our parent-teacher conferences that go on at the Rudsat Center and down off Mission Road, so the community center there. And we do that definitely for fall, and sometimes we try to get spring conferences in as well. So we pay our teachers with some of those funds to attend, since those are outside our regular block of time tied to parent-teacher conferences. Any questions so far? Running quick.
What is the attendance rate?
I did not bring that data. Bridget, I know you've been attending the NUCSAC meetings, I won't put you on the spot, but get an idea about.
The rate, and I really focus on student specific
Yeah.
areas.
That's kind of where our energy is we look at the students where they're at, individuals.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we share sort of our meeting times with folks in the school district. Do we share any other resources
Do we share other,
aside from shared meetings?
at this time, no, but the parents have the opportunity to influence how Title VI funds are used.
Okay,
So that is kind of where we're trying to move our team toward.
okay.
So right now, the bulk of funds have been tied to paras, but there may be certain things they want to focus on. Parents have brought up discussions around discipline, around cultural awareness, around Treaty Day, just identifying different things that we can help support culture, the NUCSAC culture in our schools. So I could see that as a theme in terms of how are we setting aside funds to do those kind of things.
What about like curriculum? Do the parents give feedback or commentary on curriculum?
We've been working with the tribe to enhance STI. And this is something where I would probably default to Bridget as well regarding some of that work with the culture department, since that ties to curriculum and that's her area of expertise. But how we support STI, since time immemorial, in our schools, we want that collaboration with the tribe. It's one thing to use the state curriculum, but you're supposed to take that and then infuse the local tribe curriculum into that. And I don't feel like we're really fully at that stage.
Not fully, but we're definitely making progress.
Yeah. Good questions. That's the direction we need to head. And how Title VI connects to that is something that we want to also empower in our parents.
Ian, you said 136 is the most kids we've had. Where were we in the past? But
the numbers have varied from down to low 100s to 130. We've had 134. It looks like our funding rate maybe went up. But but we've had 130s before, but I think 136 is about our highest. Yeah. Not all families complete the 506. Some will decline. Up there is attendance. So we have monthly NUCSAC attendance meetings. We have Mount Baker staff and staff from the NUCSAC Education Department who are working together, as Bridget mentioned, around supporting students at the individual level, trying to figure out how we can remove barriers. And a lot of the work that's going on this year, it's just been wonderful to see. The academic intervention specialist, her name is Nadine Hussey, from NUCSAC. She's been providing tutoring in our academic success classes, a few of those classes supporting NUCSAC students. So that presence on campus has been wonderful. We've established a culture club as well. I wish I could pronounce that. I don't quite have it yet. So the culture club was also established this year, and there's a weekly club on Friday mornings with NUCSAC students and some NUCSAC educational staff. Again, the focus there is culture and supporting connections with our NUCSAC kids. In the fall, last fall, junior high staff engaged in a Places and Names tour. And that was literally our staff being driven around and being, what was explained as the NUCSAC culture and just some origin stories, histories tied to language and our culture, the NUCSAC culture in general. And that was met very warmly, and it was a great thing that we provided to us. We hope to expand that. We have ongoing consultation with the NUCSAC Tribal Education Liaison, Ravinia Williams. She has been a long-standing support to our families here at Mount Baker, as well as NUCSAC Valley. And her focus is to connect, to help support family engagement and address barriers for our students so they can be at school and thrive.
Do any success stories come to mind with regards to the academic intervention?
Specific success stories. I guess I don't have any specific student stories at this time. We also have youth aids, and so this is a new thing we are doing this year. So we have NUCSAC education staff establish connections with students at Acme Harmony at the junior high and high school. Acme and Harmony is where the bulk of our NUCSAC students at the elementary levels attend. And I just put in there some future work. We've had some ongoing discussions about dating land acknowledgement. I just put in there a component about parent voice. It is something we strive to increase, and the meetings we've had this year have been fruitful in terms of parents feeling comfort sharing with us their concerns, and we want to keep hearing that going forward. And then the acknowledgement of Treaty Day this upcoming school year for Mount Baker is great. That ties us directly with NUCSAC, who also acknowledged Treaty Day this school year. So being able to align our work together with NUCSAC Valley, that's appreciated as well in the school calendar. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. That's the work we're doing. There are a lot of people who are tied to this work, and it would be completely wrong of me to not acknowledge Bridget Rossman and the work. She's been instrumental in all of the components related to the culture department and the education department. She's been the boots on the ground working with the Nooksack tribe in a variety of different ways. And I've just seen all these things represent so much action that we've been able to take this year. And when I remember being a part of a meeting, Bridget was at that meeting, and I remember one established member of the Nooksack tribe stating to us, honor our kids. And that's been resonating ever since that meeting, honor our kids. And we should be honoring all kids. And if if a member of the Nooksack tribe is saying, expressing that there may be some concerns around us not doing that, that is something we need to focus on for all of our families, but also our Nooksack families specifically. There we are. That's Title VI in a small little nutshell. Any other questions?
In the parent advisory meetings, what kinds of things do parents bring up? Or what are there any sort of themes of concerns that are raised or notable things that we've gotten feedback from the parent advisory committee?
Yeah. I would say specifically it's that cultural responsiveness. Kids need to be able to walk in schools and feel like the school represents them. So we've had a few parents bring that up. We've had some parents discuss just specific concerns, maybe around discipline or how some specific things were handled in different ways. But the cultural responsiveness thing is definitely central to a lot of what parents are sharing.
We have a clear idea of themes within that bigger umbrella,
A clear idea of what?
of themes within that bigger umbrella of cultural responsiveness. Like, are there cultural stress points that come up frequently?
For me, the one thing that resonated was listening to parent discuss the impact of Treaty Day and the events that occurred that week at Nooksack, the Nooksack Valley, regarding non-Nooksack parents coming up to families and then the school district employees talking, the principals talking about the power, the impact of those opportunities to honor the Nooksack tribe. And that cultural enrichment, it was a real powerful thing to hear that parent discuss, so passionately to the team.
To feel that the Nooksack tribe has been honored and held in a place of esteem. Yeah, by other members of the community. I think that's really powerful.
Honoring Treaty Day honors the Nooksack tribe. Honors history. The Nooksack way of life.
Well, I'm full of all kinds of questions, but I don't want to like derail.
I think
so big.
Russ has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, just I wanted to thank you, Ian. It is a really great report. And I'm so pleased that there's such a large parent group and interest in that the parents have, as well as the culture club for the students. I'm glad to see all of those, and the follow up on Treaty Day is interesting, and how we can develop those kind of connections in the future. Great. So thanks for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, presentation on athletics with Coach Leopard. Zoya?
Apologize for being late, sorry. Had a little ball game actually going on there, so. I was very hesitant to put all this stuff on paper, but I did anyway, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. That one, that's fine. Oh. That's fine. Hi. I'm Ron Leopard. Nice to meet you. We have a meeting tomorrow. One of these?
Sure.
Should we like look once?
It was cute.
Yeah.
It's my first.
Okay, fire away.
You're here to talk to us.
And I have answers written down here to questions. So I came by, thanks for having me here tonight, and again, for accommodating our scale, by the way, we won, so, that's good. Came back in the fall, talking about, some things that have gone on budget-wise and stuff like that. This year kind of following up, because we're almost done with the school year here, trying to move forward into the next school year. Again, I understand there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm, trying, being a community member for the last 31 years, I'm also here to kind of advocate a little bit for something I'm kind of involved in with athletics, and the impact that has. Again, what you have in front of you are just some numbers and stuff. I'm going to kind of bounce around just a little bit and go back and forth onto that. But before I get going, one thing I would like to stress, if you look down towards the bottom of the list there, at the high school, we currently have 231 students out of 460 students competing in athletics. Okay, and that is not counting multiple, that's not multiple athletes. That's the number of athletes we've actually had. Okay, that we have there. And at the junior high, it's 154 out of 240. Okay, that are actually doing it. And then we have numerous students who are multiple athletes doing that there. And so just kind of going up the page a little bit, just to, again, for those that have not followed as closely as others, 2 years ago, the athletic budget was $200,000. Last year it was $180,000, and this past school year it was $66,000. And that's, I'm not really a math guy, but it's about 67% reduction, which I don't know. I would like you to find another department in our district that's gone through that kind of reduction. That would be hard pressed to find that. Okay, I bring that up because obviously I value the impact that athletics have on students. I've seen it more times than I can count. I look around the room and I've had multiple athletes of parents in here and so forth, and former students and stuff like that. I just know if we need some help with that. And I know I came last year, I was asked to do, I'll be very honest with you, I was asked to cut $130,000 athletic budget. And of course, I'm a loyal type guy, so I went and did my job after I was done. Though I wasn't very happy about how that was, and it was kind of a lot was on me to do that. There's some things that I don't want to say fallen behind, but we've not been able to move forward on some stuff. And so I'm not, again, I understand that, I'm not expecting to get, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for athletics, but I think we need to have more than the 66 if we can, because as you look at, again, if we go up keep going up the ladder just a little bit, you can see for officials only, that's $31,000 that we got somewhere else to help pay for officials. And
That came from what?
that came. So high school ASB paid $15,000, right around $15,000. Junior high ASB paid for around $9,000, and then out of our gate money that we bring in, $7,000 spent on that. And if you keep going up the list, you'll see WOA fees kind of towards the top. That's Washington Officials Association. So out of the athletic budget that I have at my discretion at this time, we've paid $6,000 out of that, and we're probably still some more coming. Okay, and officials cost more money. You got to have the officials to have games, the way it is. And the price has gone up quite a bit, and not to put Nick on the spot, but he understands that. And I'm not complaining one bit, because we need to have officials and we couldn't play without them. But the prices have gone up quite a bit over the last couple of years. That's something we knew was coming, and it's happened there. Couple things that I would like to point out. The Booster Club has been awesome for us. I mean, if you looked at, they bought a zero-turn mower for the athletic department, which is used for just athletic fields. And the school district has one of their own, but we use that on the fields on there. We have a volunteer from the community who's on that lawnmower probably 5 days a week. It's like, out there volunteering his time to cut the grass.
Who is that?
That would be Brett Pugmeyer, one of my assistant coaches. Like, he's out there on Sunday, Saturday, whatever it works to get stuff, especially if we have rain during the week, getting stuff done. And he's helping with the soccer fields. He's doing a lot of stuff on the Mitchell Road area, which has freed up Jeff, because we know that guy is busy as heck, right? They've also purchased a side-by-side that allows us to drag our fields and stuff. We had a gator that the Booster Club bought back in 2008.
Who purchased that side?
The Booster Club.
Booster Club.
Yes, yeah, the Booster Club did that. And because I was like 2008, we're going to get up there. If that thing goes down, we're in trouble. Because, like right now, the gator, or we're using it right now to drag the fields as I was walking there to get the fields in shape for the program there. And then they also bought some football helmets for us that traditionally has been bought from the district, because it's a safety thing that we have to provide that sport. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there right now, just to kind of push that out a little bit. If I backtrack just a little bit, in years past, when I first became the athletic director, I don't remember what year it was. I know it was before COVID, so I had to do a bunch of COVID stuff. That wasn't much fun. Yeah, all the guidelines, but it was before then. So money was used for, we had different accounts, and then just after that, we just said, hey, we're gonna put everything in one account. So it takes care of officials, takes care of transportation, safety equipment, and then anything left over was stuff that in uniform rotation. That's the other thing. We've had to put a pause on that. Some of our programs are in dire need for some stuff. I mean, we fundraise the heck out of our community, and so I really dragged my feet. Can you go out and ask for stuff? So we put that on pause, but we never spent the full amount, which was fine, because whatever we didn't spend went back to the school district. But at the end of the year, if there was things we needed to get, we got those. So for example, in the early 2020s, we got all the new discus ring that we have here that we had, the high jump pit, long jump, or a pole vault pit, all that stuff. We had to upgrade that, new hurdles. When we put in the greenhouse and the other trailer out there, that's where our shot put rink was. So it had to be moved. Well, athletic, the pay that was like $10,000 or $12,000 to move that, reset it up. That came out of that account. So that's what was kind of some of our bigger ticket items that we needed. Okay. Any kind of protective gear like helmets for softball, baseball, football, catch like stuff was bought there. Okay. So those are just some of the things that we have there. Okay, going there. And so as I'm talking here and you're looking here, if you look, there's a question mark under football helmet reconditioning. So I haven't got that back yet. So our helmets have to be reconditioned. So every 3 years, the helmets go back and they go to a company and they get certified whether they continue to use it or not. And then now, currently, this is couple recent years, the shelf life of a helmet is 10 years, whether you use it or not. Okay. We had an issue with the helmets that we had gotten, that we've been using. And so over the last 2 years, with the help of some of the school district money, I'm not gonna lie, but Booster Club's helped out. I've had 2 individuals in the community that went out and purchased up to $10,000 worth of equipment. We have upgraded all our helmets for the high school team, and we're in the process of doing the same for the junior high at this time. Okay, to a different style of helmet, different kind of deal. But they're not cheap, right? Shoulder pads aren't cheap. That stuff's really expensive stuff. So, and then when I was going through all this stuff, I forgot about certain things, like, because we just, I don't remember, like, so WI membership every year, we got to pay that. And then that's $1,900, right? I think it's what it is, like L&I for WIA, that's in there. Okay. Our basketball programs and our football programs in the conference are required to have a certain video platform for us to exchange film and do work with there. That costs money. Okay. And so that's what's listed up there at the second one. Final forms. If you're a parent, you filled out final forms at our high school or junior high, which is an awesome tool. Saves everything. I mean, people's work. It shuts things, it's awesome to communicate. We can send interviews there, but that costs money. And that is based on, and so when I said there's this like semi-fixed, fixed, variable, we're going to pay for it, but it depends how many kids we have. So if a kid plays, it doesn't have any sports, but they get charged a certain amount of money for them to be part of that program. So that's there. Okay. So again, I'm not going to go all the way through everything I do. You can look at that. I guess I'm just, I went to, this is the part this is the hardest part for me, without a doubt, is I went to the high school and junior high ASB asking for some help last year, saying that I wouldn't go back again this year. Okay, so, because there's reasons for that, but I really wrestle a little hard with that, with that, asking them to do that. So I don't know, I don't have all the answers, obviously. I'm just trying to point out kind of where we're at and what we've been doing. A couple of things I would like to point out that aren't written down here, okay, is that coaches, we have, especially this fall, we have 2 coaches who can drive bus. They have driven sports teams to their games. They do not get paid while they're coaching. They get paid to drive the bus there and back, but they don't get paid while they're coaching, because we're short of bus drivers. We take support vehicles as much as possible to try to save money, and it's because of the lack of drivers getting there. We do it where we have a bus, we'll go and drop a team off and leave, and then the coach will follow, and a support vehicle will bring back kids home that needed to get a ride. Their parents don't pick them up. We're being really creative and trying to make this stuff work, right? So they're let's see, what's the other one I'm doing? Okay. Limit something with support vehicles. One of the downsides is we have to limit the amount of kids we take. Right, on a bus, you can load your bus up. On a support vehicle, you have a certain amount, like we can't take more than 8 kids in there, right? So sometimes we have to make a decision of a kid not traveling to an event or something because of that. I would like to point out that WIA passed some amendments last week, or earlier this week, and so one of the amendments is the transfer amendment. Okay, and so just throwing that out there. I mean, if we've had some students leave our district because the issues with financial, not sure, and all the uncertainty and being in binding. When we lose those students, we lose a lot more money than we do if we get rid of athletics. It's roughly about $10,000 a kid if they leave our district, right? I mean, it's a real thing. So the transfer thing now is that during the transfer window, a student can go to another school. They do not have to take they do not have to do the appeal process. They're eligible for varsity, but they have to miss 40% of their season before they can be eligible to play at the varsity. Whereas before, if you just moved for no reason, you were for JV for the whole year. You can never play varsity. So that's a little bit of a change. And the state coaches, some of the coach associations, a couple that I'm involved with, really pushed for this because there were some state legislatures that were trying to say that they wanted the transfer portal like college, which is, it would kill high school sports. I mean, it's out of control. Right. So here, sometimes it might be a thing you move, but now you got to sacrifice some of your season, but not the whole season. Obviously, if you move with your whole family as a family unit in there, and you still go through the appeal process of a hardship, but if they say no on the hardship, then you can't go back and get the 40%. So you got to choose one way or the other. Yeah, when you do that. Okay, so that was kind of the big one of the big ones that came out of what was on there. So I know I throw a lot of stuff out there. I guess bottom line for me is, coaches' salaries have been frozen. We've consolidated some stuff. We only have basically 2 C teams in our, I know some of the schools, they want to cut the C team. We have C team in boys basketball and we have C team in football. That's it. Okay. Coaches working through that stuff. So, I mean, we're trying to be as minimal as we can, but our kids participate.
Would you have more C teams if we had more?
If it's more about the kids, it kind of helps us right now because we have a ton of kids. But if we had the kids, I'd push hard to get that because ultimately it's only going to be selling a C team coach gets paid $25,000 a coach, right? And those kids are playing. We want them doing that, right? And so it's based on the numbers more than that,
right?
So I say that just so because you're going to hear other districts I know say, "Hey, we're getting rid of C team." I think Blaine is right. So we don't really have that issue per se because there are only 2 sports that we carry that,
right? Okay,
because of the numbers. Compared to Nooksack and compared to Meridian, our travel costs and what we do with our sports we go. I know one of the things I was approached about was about traveling, sports wise, where we travel to. I will just say football related. We have to travel. I mean, I'd rather not go to Hawkinson, okay, down in Vancouver or Port Angeles. Nothing wrong with Port Angeles, but I'd rather not go there on a Friday to play. But people won't play us. that are closer. And so we have to go find games, and we cannot not play games, I mean, we can't not have games and get those ready for what we do. Okay, so that's, that's kind of, that's why, last year they came here, this year we're going there.
Why
Okay,
won't people closer can't play?
Program.
Because we're a good football
And
program.
they don't.
Oh.
we're, yeah, they don't want to get beat up too much. I mean, they just, that's just the
Well,
case.
how come they don't just why can't you make them play you then?
Well, in our league, we can, in our league, with league, but a non-league game, they don't wanna, they would rather not. Like, we have not been as good, we haven't been as good as we were for the last, 15 years and stuff, so, but, a little more open to do that. But, you're calling a team that said, no, we're not gonna play you guys. We're not gonna play you guys, and they don't have to, cause it's a non-league game, they don't have to do that.
Then you have to play non-league game.
Well,
That's how they get better.
that's how we get better. If we did not, so for example, we didn't play a non-league schedule, we would not play a football game until mid-October. Right, and we only have 4 league games. So,
And the wins contribute towards the playoffs.
yeah, and all that stuff so we go out and play these teams and so forth. That's like we're playing OMAC, right? OMAC's coming here this year. We went to OMAC last year. I mean, we have not been afraid to travel and do that. And I know there's a cost there. I get that, but at the same time, I'm hesitant to GoPro and videotape a trip with us because, but the kids, things they get to experience, things we get to do. I mean, when we're in a suburban together, or we're on a bus and that's all part of that experience too, right? Staying in hotels. Like that's the other thing on here, you look under the hotel, it'll say, I want to say wrestling, right? Boys and girls wrestling. Did I not put that on there? I don't think I put it on there. Okay, I left one off there. So there's about $2,800 was spent on the boys and girls wrestling teams when they went to state because we had to pay for motel rooms. We give some meal money. Our district, we give the kids $20 a day to help with their meals. Some districts give more. Some districts just pay for everything. The boosters do that. We used to give $8 a day, and you can't even buy a Big Mac meal for $8. And not that I'm encouraging that, but some kids, money's gonna, it's not there to tilt for them, it's there to help. So I apologize for leaving that off. That should have been on there. So that's another part of that. It's not in there. I don't see it in there. Dang it. But that was about $28. So we go to state, that comes out of that. Been doing that stuff. So.
Okay.
So
$2,800. How frequently do we have students move into the district to play football?
not very
Or
often.
wrestle,
Not necessarily very often. I mean, I know I can speak that there's been a couple of families recently that have left, and there's other things, but to be honest, I know a couple of because it's, and they were worried about our budgeting and our issues there. It doesn't happen very often. I mean, because there's a lot of rules behind it. I mean,
behind moving
yes,
to a
yeah,
specific district, okay.
yeah. There's a lot to it there. But like I said, the state wrestling, like I said, so we had 14 athletes that wrestled this year at the state tournament. So we buy stuff from, so that's a cost. So if one this year, unfortunately, 14, we didn't make it to state in other sports, which saves us some money, but it's, kind of unfortunate, but it does save us money. We don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, track will probably have a couple athletes and coaches that'll be going, softball's still alive, that with that opportunity to do that, soccer, golf. So, I mean, those are things that, we have to travel to go do those things. Okay, I'm doing that. So, but yeah, I mean, there's just, again, I just go back to, for me, it's, seeing kids that, are engaged, kids that are, I get a lot of emails probably before the principal. If there's an athlete not taking care of their business in classroom, I get that email first. Can you talk to so-and-so? I mean, we have some athletes right now currently ineligible because of grades, because we hold them accountable. You got to get your schoolwork done, you got to do your stuff. So it's all part of that package deal, and that we offer as a school. That's very important. And our community is very passionate about our athletics, and and our CTE and stuff. Those are big things. And it's nothing against math or science like that. They just don't have the competitions that we do where they get to see that. and gets advertised, you know, and Mr. Reimeyer does a great job advertising the successes they have. They do those things. You know, we come out, we put our talent online Friday nights here, you know, in the gym where we're at doing that stuff and doing that. So just so you know, the money that is raised at our events, because not all our sports, oh, there's another one I left off here too, I just remembered. Dang it. But like, for example, our golf program, we don't have a golf course in our district. So we have to pay money to use the golf course. We use North Bellingham, and that's $2,300 for the spring. We're using that. So, I mean, for our golf program to do that, okay, to pay for the use of the range fee and buying, you know, range balls and stuff like that. What was I going to say before that? I lost it now. Yeah. So anyway, just oh yeah, so all our events that charge money that goes into an ASB account called Gate, the ASB Gate account. That money is then redistributed through to the sports to help with their budgets for the following year. Last year, it was $20,000 budgeted towards all the sports in our school. This year we had a little bit more, so $29,000 got expended. Not every program gets the same amount of money. Just gonna be very honest with you, because some programs their nest egg is better and it's okay, and they're not spending a lot, so that's okay, and they understand that. Talk to them about that. A couple are higher than others, like wrestling, because not like basketball where we have 15 game league schedule and those games we have to go to tournaments, and those tournaments cost money every weekend. So like, for example, the boys this year, we went to 8 tournaments, 8 weekends in a row. We were on the road traveling to tournaments. Well, one we had ours at home there, but it was all costs there. So we try to help with that, you know, that figuring out their helmet or football just costs more money for everything. There's just more kids involved. We had 66 kids in football last year. And with the equipment, it's just more. Okay, golf is pretty self-sufficient right now, so they got no money. So it doesn't matter if you bring money in or not, you still get money back from the gate transfer. And this year I tried to budget a little bit more for some of them so they could help with uniform, like girls soccer needs to get the uniforms. I didn't realize they were bad last year. I would have went and bought them for them because it was bad. So, but we don't have our uniform rotation right now because of the money we don't have in that athletic account to do that. Where every 4 years, certain sports were up to get, you know, money to help refurbish their uniforms and get new stuff. Sorry, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. So, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them in a polite manner.
So the 69K was what was spent last year.
That's right now. Yes. This is
this school year.
yeah, it's over what we had, you know, and again, I don't have, I mean, I can't believe I didn't put it in there, but I have it in my other notes, but you know, that's another 2,300 is going to be added to that for North Bellingham rental.
Right.
And again, I'm not sure what we get for home reconditioning, and on there, so.
Right. You spent money on officials, but you had money coming from ASB, which is kind of a one-time.
That's how I approached it last year. I mean, that's how
Which is fair. They got, you know, stuff to spend money on.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know they have some money and stuff, and you know, and I know it's a different time right now. I totally get that. And if that's what we have to go down that road again, begrudgingly, then I'm going to go down the road. But you know, it's just that we haven't done that before. Right. And that's the thing. And then to go ask that's the first time it's been asked. Right. And I didn't really want that to be something we had to rely on if we didn't have to, kind of thing. Now, of the ASB money for the high school, I don't know how for the junior high. They didn't really, with our ASB cards that we sold this year, it broke about even on that number.
Okay.
Right. Because our kids that participate in the sport need to buy an ASB card. And then that money goes into the ASB, general ASB account. And I think when we added it up, it was pretty close to being a wash there. So.
What, any other big deferred maintenance items come to mind that didn't get dealt with last year that you would have?
The one thing that has, rumor is it's going to happen this summer. But when we redid Tisdale Field, part of the plan, part of the thing, the package that was delivered by the engineer stuff was to top dress that thing yearly, and that hasn't happened since we put the field in. Because stuff goes away, stuff gets, you know, through the soil, And so it wasn't like a ton, but there was a plan, and that plan was put in with the contract when the person designed what was gonna go on there, and that was all part of it. Here's what you need to do to stay up with that, and that hasn't happened.
With adding soil.
Or whatever it is, and there's, yeah, it could be even sand or whatever, I mean, I don't know, I haven't looked at it detail, I was just told it was there, I kind of saw the thing, but didn't go through it. Like if some years it might be a quarter of an inch needed to be added in there, but I just know we haven't, that I'm aware of, that has not happened since we had the field. That field was done in 2016, I believe. I believe. I think we played a playoff game there in the snow. At the end of that school year or the season. But nothing, I mean, there's things, but I understand that it's down the road, right? I mean, that's
Right.
right.
Well, you mentioned years past, if you had money, you would work on the track and field.
Yeah, like I said, we were able to get a deal to get, we got a wrestling mat, which we needed, because we had the money left over. Like believe it or not, I'm very frugal with the money. Like I make sure it's stuff that we need and stuff like that. Like it's not just because, hey, we got money, let's go spend it. That's not there. So to me, those are like big ticket items that at the end of the year, if we had an extra, $30,000 or $40,000 in that account, we don't need to spend it just because we have it, but it's something we could use, then let's go do it. This is something we can get taken care of.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Just because for some history for this school board, because it was actually a different school board a few years ago that stopped the player fees, right?
Yes.
So can you recall the last time player fees were a thing and roughly what they were?
I want to say right around COVID, and it was, we charged less for an ASB card, but then students had to pay, there was a 3-tier system. I'm not going to try to tell you the exact numbers, but let's say, for example, it might have been like for your first sport was maybe $40, second sport might have been 25, and the third sport was 15 or something along those lines. I think, so I know my kids went through that. For them to play 3 sports, I want to say it was about $100. It was less, $100 or less if you were a 3-sport athlete. And we just found that was keeping some kids, there was a barrier. And so we rescinded that pay to play. And then we upped the ASB to $45. It was $35 when we upped that to $45 a pop to kind of balance that. And it was, to be honest with you, it might be better now. It was kind of a nightmare for parents because they had to pay their ASB card, went here, pay to play, went over here to the district. You couldn't just pay one thing. It was here.
Any student plays sports has to get an ASB card, and any student that wants to come and watch that as well needs to get it? Or?
No, they can pay the money, but if they get an ASB card, they get a discount price. At our place, they get in for free.
Right.
But if you go to Nooksack or Meridian, you get in for a discounted price. So a lot of kids buy it, because it's there.
Right.
And then I can't remember the name of the House Bill
1660,
right? So kids that can't work, then we have to give them access to that, which that's a whole different thing that I'd like to talk about some other time.
The other reason I bring up the student fees piece, because that's a board decision to make about those fees. And as Coach Lepp mentioned, since those times, that 1660 is passed after the district used to have fees, which means that students who would qualify for free reduced lunch, which in a district like ours that has CEP that's actually through a different process, wouldn't have to pay those fees. But I just think it's something important for the board to consider as we look at our neighbors. Some neighbors are considering instituting fees in order to maintain athletics.
I don't know how many of our students would qualify for free and reduced lunch.
56%.
I think as we're going through this budget development process, we want to support the athletics, so we want to keep every option open to make sure we do.
Yeah. And I think we want to say we had the pay to play for 7-8 years, maybe. Just off the top of my head.
And don't get me wrong, I will say I would rather keep things free, but I'll take a chance also to talk about the state legislature. Like that's where our levy money is going, is because our voters want us to pay for stuff like this. But because of the inaction by the state, we have to use our levy dollars to pay for stuff they're inadequately funding, which is hurting our athletics.
No, there's no doubt. Yeah. And I know I come in here to the position. I mean, like I said, this is important to me, and I, all the history and that kind of stuff, but whatever we can do to keep kids involved is huge, you know, but that's that double-edged sword, because now we start adding these fees and there's gonna be some kids that don't or whatever, and so that's that fine line, right? I mean, that's that fine line.
And we know the value of sports and supporting academics.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah. Yeah, and you know, and I mean, being a community member and, you know, going somewhere local, that's the first thing, hey, how's this, you know, hey, that's kind of how it works, right? I mean, it is what it is, so.
Is Russ's raised hand new?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ron, I want to thank you so much for your thorough report. I think it's really good for the board to hear this level of detail, in part because as we do the overall budget development, realizing that money, our current budget in so many ways is not sustainable, whether it's athletics, whether it's with other parts of our work. And so all the work that we can do to head towards sustainability pays off. And I also really want to thank you. You did mention, and you are a team player, and I want to thank the efforts that you've put in holding things together. I know the board has made a strong statement that we want to keep the experience that our students have in athletics, so that you know that they have those opportunities, and the things that are so hard to pay for, they're not coming specifically as much from out of the student's experience, and I think a lot of that is the work you've done to economize as much as you can. So I thank you for that. And so I just want to say that we're still in a position where we have to hang in there, but we're working towards getting back to a sustainable budget. And a lot of the pieces are not in our control, but those ones that are in our control, I think we really have to keep barreling down on. So, but thanks for your report. I think it was very valuable for us.
Yes, I would just like to add to that too. I mean, anytime you need input or please let me know if I can help. I mean, yeah, this might work or this wouldn't work or whatever, you know. And then I just also would like to add, we have had some very, very gracious / helpful community members throw some stuff, pitch in a little bit to help out at all different levels, you know, junior high school, multiple sports helping out with this stuff, you know, this year. So our community is awesome that way. I mean, it's just, and you know, I know deep down, if I had to go down and say, hey, I need this, I really need this, it would be taken care of. But you know, I'm trying to save that bullet. I'm trying to save that as long as I can. But we've just had some people really step up, you know, in our community, and a lot of them don't want their names to be mentioned, which is great. But you know, it's been very, very helpful, extremely helpful. So, okay,
Yeah.
That's all I got. Thanks. Sorry it took so long, and I apologize I didn't have those other two numbers on there. I just saw it when I stood there. But
No. Congrats on the win.
thanks. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Oh, by the way, if softball does qualify for postseason, we have a bi-district event that will be down in Centralia. So we're in with District 4. So there's 3 leagues getting together. So last year, for those who remember, we had 5 teams playing for 1 spot. So now we have 3 teams being involved for 5 spots. So
Awesome.
So a little bit of travel, but it gives 3 of our teams up here a chance to do something as opposed to 1. So
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the public hearing,
So you just kind of open the public hearing and you allow for any feedback on what Ian presented. If no one gives feedback, you close the public hearing.
okay, the public hearing is open for the Title VI Indian Education presentation feedback. Anybody? Public hearing is closed. Okay. Board action items.
Yep, so this first one is the resolution around the reduced educational program. I've communicated this early with you, as well as union leadership and the staff as well. I've shared those communications with folks. So this is not new information for folks. We know these are still hard resolutions to read. What this, as I've communicated, what this is granting the authority to me to reduce positions in order to maintain a balanced budget. The numbers presented here, which are 13 FTE certificated, 10 FTE classified, and up to $500,000 in non-represented employee costs. I'm qualifying that as that's the worst case scenario. That is using some budget projections that are very conservative. It's assuming no help from the state. It's assuming some continued challenges with uncertainty at the federal level. So that is just the greatest authority that I would need. If everything goes wrong, that's the authority I need to ensure that we adopt a balanced budget. That said, those are numbers I hope to not reach, and we'll know more once the legislative session ends, which will hopefully be Sunday. Brian and I are not in agreement. He thinks it won't end. I will remind him that a lot of those folks rent and leases end at the end of the month. So I think they will be done. So we'll see. One of us will be right, I guess. But then it takes OSPI about a week to create the tool in order for us to forecast revenues. Then Brian will work feverishly to use that tool to create revenue forecasts, in which those reductions will become much more known at that point. So yeah, this grants the authority to make those changes. For comparison, the resolution that was passed last year is nearly identical. The only difference is that the certificated number last year was 15 instead of 13. So the other two numbers remained the same.
So this is an up to.
Correct, yes.
Because I was looking for that language in the resolution. I feel like it was there last time, but maybe not.
We just changed just the numbers this time.
So it wasn't there and
Yeah.
I just imagined, but it's up to 13, up to 10, up to 500.
Yes, and the other piece too that I want to clarify is that it recognizes even if something occurs through attrition. So even if we went up to the 13 mark for certificated staff, it would be inclusive of folks who have submitted their decision to retire or resign.
Sure.
So it doesn't necessarily mean 13 people are getting notice, I guess.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering about that because I did see there was a couple of resignations for, but not into effect until the end of August. So does that affect it any?
That's just simply when when that ends. So yeah,
Okay.
because that's when the fiscal year ends. So,
Oh, gotcha.
Yep. School year thing. Yeah.
Right.
We're under contract with.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what kind of feedback have we gotten when sharing this with different employee groups?
Yeah, that's a good question. My direct interactions were with the leadership of employee groups. So I want to make sure I clarify that that's the feedback I've received was from the leaders of those groups. I would say that the certificated group MBEA was understanding of the number we arrived at, and they also know this process quite well. And they are aware of the uncertainty at both federal and state level. PSE, I'd say, had more clarifying questions, and we worked to clarify those questions. None of this is great news, but they didn't really. Their questions weren't accusatory in any way. They were understanding. And then with the non-represented group, that was probably the harder conversation because that is a group that has limited to zero protection. And so they're a group that feels vulnerable right now because they don't have the backing of a union. So
I was hoping just to ask some general questions.
Sure.
To help fill in the gaps for maybe people that don't follow every board meeting, just listening to this one, I kind of want to a big picture idea of what's going on.
Sure.
So, could you talk a little bit about our enrollment numbers from last year to this year? Maybe what the differences are and how that affects our.
Yeah, forgive me. I'm gonna look at what I'm going to present in a few minutes with the financial update, just to compare enrollment. At this point, we are above enrollment last year, slightly. Our annual average right now is 1498.
Okay.
And our annual average last year, I don't have that off the top of my head, but it's showing historically lower. So the impact there, Coach Lett mentioned it, that when we have a student, FTE, it's anywhere between, more like $12,000, 12.5. That each student lost is.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess if enrollment's up slightly, it might be a little confusing on, these cuts seem pretty severe.
Mhm.
I would have, in general, someone might expect, well, if our enrollment's the same, why are we making such severe cuts
Mhm.
relative to that?
Yeah, I think I would say there are some of, it's twofold. One is our commitment that we've made to the employees we have in this district relative to their collective bargaining agreements and what we've negotiated with them. And I think those were agreements that had some give and take on both sides, whether it was the district side or the labor side. And so we want to fulfill those agreements because we do believe they were fair, they were collectively bargained. But really one of the big pieces is inadequate funding from the state. That's going to continue to separate the gap's going to get wider and wider because of the disproportionate amount of funding we receive from the state for positions. If you look at the salaries they fund, then when they say that they're going to give a cost of living increase, it's on a lower salary than what we pay. So therefore, we're making up more of that gap.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about inflation?
Yep, inflation has played a big part in it too. But what I will actually show you later on too is that when it comes to when it comes to materials and supplies, we've been doing actually pretty good with that. We've been able to navigate inflation when it comes to our decisions around purchasing quite well. So what it is, it's our labor costs and the state not adequately funding those labor costs. Another piece too, if you look at how current legislation is looking, we were going really big after three big things, one of them being MSOCs. It looks like if the MSOC bill passes that it's looking like right now, it's about $52,000 for us. Like, not like per kid, but like $52,000.
Right.
And our insurance premium is going to go up $86,000. So it's not even covering that.
Right. So we have this MSOC cost that's going up, even though our enrollment's the same. We have, other costs going up related to our current, agreement with employees. What are some related to enrollment? It sounds like there's some success there and that it didn't go down.
Right.
So that's good. What are some of the things that we're doing to help increase our enrollment?
I think a couple different things. We've tried to remain creative in supporting families who might not feel the traditional comprehensive school is the best fit for them. This year we launched a secondary 9 through 12 alternative approach to students doing some hybrid learning where they're spending time with one of our secondary teachers, but also doing some remote stuff. So if we can retain those students here as opposed to them going to an impact program at Bellingham Technical College, we then keep that FTE. And quite frankly, my opinion is that they receive better support from the teachers who they've known for a long time as opposed to someone who might be new to them. Alternatively, our Mount Baker Academy continues to be a strong partner for our homeschool families. And Anne, with the support of Bridget Rossman, does great work to maintain that FTE because that's going to be how we work to keep that enrollment where it is through remaining flexible to the needs of families.
Okay. And what are some of the other funding sources that we've got, grants or other things that we're doing to help offset maybe the money that we should be getting from the state?
Yeah, and that's a tricky one with the grants. As I shared a couple weeks ago, we were fortunate enough to get a grant for $225,000, but that's a private grant. So the tricky part about that is you don't budget those; those aren't sustainable. However, on the other side, you look at the work that Brian and Ian are doing right now to ensure that we get every possible dollar and dime of federal grants and state grants. I just really need to commend both of them for the work they're doing because I think we're very fortunate to have two skilled folks that are working to make sure that we get every possible piece of that. And I want to make sure that folks listening know that, because we heard people ask us to make sure we go for grants. We've been very successful with special education safety net, transportation safety net. And that takes a lot of work, but it's been important to make sure we can balance our budget.
So with the 13 and the 10 and 500K, what's the approach or process that you would follow in making decisions about how to achieve that?
Yeah, I think the first lens we look through when it comes to anything is the proximity to a student experience, I guess. If there are positions that never interact with the student in a day, while we know that support is important and what they provide is important, that has to be kind of the first lens we look through. Those folks that are engaged in the teaching and learning, both paras and teachers, I think are going to be the ones we need to protect the most because that's what we are. We're a teaching and learning organization. Beyond that, I think the next layer is to look at programs or, quite frankly, class size, as we look closely at our sections at the secondary level, if we look at sections at the elementary level, if there's any way where we can get creative with things. And, at the elementary level, quite frankly, creativity means multi-level classes, what used to be referred to as split classes, but that has a negative connotation. So it's more multi-level classes, which I know have varying opinions on, but unfortunately, we're in a spot where those are considerations we have to make.
It's probably hard to get into specifics at this point because of the union agreement that you can talk about.
And it's hard to get into specifics right now because of the unknown, because we don't know until Sunday night, if not later, right?
Okay.
Because these numbers don't have action behind them right now because we just don't know. Once we start using that tool and become more realistic, then that's when those pieces become actionable.
Okay. So I saw the email that came out related to the meeting tonight. We were going to be talking about something. It didn't really say it, so it didn't go over the 13 and the 10 and the 500K. And I guess I'm just wondering, even though it's negative information, if that would be worth in that type of email, because the only way someone could get that would they would read that and what's going on, and then you have to click on the link and get to this. So it's kind of a little bit of a process, and obviously I don't like airing our bad laundry, but we've been asked, a lot of times to be transparent. So there might be an opportunity there between now and
I'm more than happy to, and I'll be transparent in my communication. The way I did it that way, I was hoping to steer more people towards board docs. I don't know if enough of our folks know that board docs exist.
Right.
And so that was my intention there, but I completely agree with you. Transparency is important. I was hoping by making it a link, people would start to realize the amount of information they have access to. So that's what I was hoping for with that.
Is there anything you tell us about this 500K and how that's achieved and the impact that could have on the school district?
Yeah, how that number was achieved last year was the reduction of a director. It was also achieved through furlough days, through our non-rep staff. Everyone in the district office took 5 furlough days. I myself took 10. So, that's that we're looking at. The way to achieve that is through furloughs or full-on reductions of full positions or partial reductions of other positions. Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed. Yeah, you're great. Thank you.
Russ, you got something?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I did get a chance to sit down with Nick and Brian and go over all the numbers that Brian had put together to come up with this level of potential, the maximum reduction, and I'm convinced that the assumptions that are going into this worst case scenario are correct. I don't think that we'll end up worst case scenario. I certainly hope we won't, but I think that this is a prudent level for us to authorize superintendent so that in the crunch time between now and when pink slips have to go out, the superintendent has the correct wiggle room to be able to put together a balanced budget. If we don't pass this now, then we could easily get in a position where we're not able to balance the budget later in the year. So I really feel like this is as much as I don't like it, this is the correct level to approve at this point.
And as I look back at the, I want to circle back to your enrollment question. I'll ask Brian to clarify actually on, make sure we're clear on the enrollment question.
Yeah, enrollment is down this year from last year, but when you compare the average annual FTE, that's skewed, because if you remember, that number is what we budget at the beginning of the year. And last year we budgeted higher enrollment than we have. So that number was skewed high at the beginning, so that it's artificially deflated at the bottom. And that's why it shows this time this year that annual average FTE is not the actual number of kids. It's adjusted because it was artificially high at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So our FTE now is down. I don't want to quote, I'd have to pull Sherry's report, but it is down fairly significantly this year, and it dropped steeply in January. Last year we had a sharp drop in March, right around this time. But the reason that the annual average looks different now is because our annual average from last year is skewed low, because earlier in the year it was skewed.
Okay.
Yeah, and I apologize. Enrollment, every place you look at it in OSPI's documents, it's reported differently. And the annual average FTE is the best apples to apples, but that one they manually adjust based on what the budget was and what actually happened. So it's not, there's not a good like, here's your enrollment from OSPI, because it's different everywhere. But that's why it looks the way that it does. We are down overall from last year.
Okay.
Yeah, and I apologize, it's confusing. Talk to Chris Rakedahl.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Down overall, is it following, you know my question, is it following that trend line of about 3%?
We'll see, because we gained 2 FTE this year, or sorry, this month, but we lost another one. Already I've heard from the secretaries, and like I said, last year there was a steep drop at this time.
Yeah.
This previous year there was a steep drop in January. And this is the time of year, if a senior is out for more than 20 days, they get dropped out. So, you know, people are disengaging, maybe because we don't have as robust a course offering as we used to, then we may see some more folks drop off. So it's part of my job to speculate on lots of things. I apologize. I don't really want to speculate on that one.
What email were you talking about? Is that something that goes out?
It was my community.
Yeah.
Or the,
Oh.
The one
yeah.
you sent out.
See, I don't get those because I don't have a student in the district. So I don't know where you're talking about.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a way I can get them,
Yeah,
or,
I'm sure I can work with Katie to make sure on
Yeah.
that list.
because I get the ones from you that just go to
Oh,
us,
yeah.
but I don't,
Yeah, that's-
so I don't have a student in the district, I don't get those. Okay, anything else about, the resolution? Good. I'll entertain a motion to approve, Mount Baker Resolution 242511.
Mount Baker Resolution.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mount Baker Resolution 242511.
Second?
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so next is Resolution 242512.
Oh, you were gonna read the whole title of that one?
No.
This pertains to the sprinkler system at Kendall, that is continuing to fail. Knock on wood, at this point, it has not been catastrophic, but what we're looking for here is your approval to declare an emergency, which will then, waive the bidding rights that are required by law. But we've done some emergency work over, in November, while students were out, and that was just some patchwork stuff, but, we have some statements from both Tiger and Southeast Fire that indicate that it could fail at any time, which would then make the school inoperable.
I guess my question is the timing for having the work done and if it's gonna impact school operations.
Great question. It will not. It's gonna start, I mean, they might be cutting holes as kids are loading buses on the last day of school. So, yeah, it's gonna be done over the summer.
Anything else? You got anything, Russ?
No, I think we should prove this.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Mount Baker Resolution 24-25-12.
Motion to approve Mount Baker Board Resolution 24-25-12.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mount Baker Resolution 24-25-13.
All right, so this is a similar resolution to one that we've passed before. You creating an interfund loan from capital projects fund to the general fund to make sure that we can keep a positive cash balance. As you guys know, earlier this year, we went into a negative fund balance, but we were still able to pay bills because that just meant our debt exceeded what we had. And so because of this loan, we're able to maintain operations. And it's the one fortunate piece as opposed to using an outside loan is any interest owed is just paid to ourselves. It just moves from accounts. So at least we're not paying anyone else for the cost of this loan.
And that interest rate set on,
Brian, how do they decide that interest rate?
The interest rate is based on the amount of interest earned in the Whatcom County Treasurer's pool. So if you imagine the funds, if they were in the capital projects funds, they would be in that investment pool and earning investments, and those investment earnings would stay in the capital projects fund. If you take those funds and loan them to the general fund, those funds are now in the general fund, and as long as I invest aggressively, they're earning interest in the general fund. So when we owe back that principal, the only interest that goes with them is any interest earned in the wrong fund, essentially for that money. It's the money that it would have earned in the capital projects fund if it was there. Now, I was able to invest very aggressively, and there's only been 1 month that we had less invested than we had loaned out. And that was in January, where the treasurer was switching to a new account system and nobody knew exactly how much money anybody had. So everybody in the county just put all of their money into cash so that we could make pay our bills. So the amount of money, the amount of interest that those funds earn in the general fund simply goes with it back to the capital projects fund.
says it's over 365 days.
Yeah.
Then there's interest. Are we expecting it to be over?
No, we'll repay it and then reloan it if we need to.
I see. Okay.
that's a heck of a deal.
Yeah, it's like the shell, right?
Yeah.
Is this?
It's legal.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure.
You're saying that after everything we do, hopefully. Is this the last time we're gonna need to do this based on our plan, or?
I would hope so. I mean, the biggest piece here is to keep adding to that fund balance. As we've seen with that graph, and I'll show you again soon, when that graph dips below zero, that's because we don't have a healthy enough fund balance. So if we continue to make these hard decisions and grow our fund balance that can sustain a drop below zero, then yeah, hopefully this would be the last time.
Okay.
And this drop below zero isn't because of anything that we're doing, it's about when we get
Correct.
our funding from the
That's
state.
exactly right. It's because the revenues are predictably unpredictable.
Right, and we can follow that.
Mhm.
And so we're just gonna take that whole thing
And
and
slide it up. That's a good job. Yes, that's exactly right.
I guess another question someone might have is, what capital projects are we not doing that we would have done had that money been?
Great question. We're very fortunate that our voters approved a capital levy that's over 6 years, and it's $12 million over those 6 years. So what I would say is, because it's a loan, it's not that we're not getting to them, it's that we're just delaying them somewhat. So those priorities that we promised in the levy literature when we voted, we intend to keep. So it's not that we're not getting to them, it's just that they might be a little more delayed.
And we plan to repay our loan to ourselves on what timeline?
Within 365 days.
Within 365 days,
Mhm.
okay.
Good
Anything
questions,
else?
thank you.
Good. I'll entertain a motion to approve Mount Baker Resolution 24-25-13.
Motion to approve Mount Baker Board Resolution 24-2513.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yay. you
Aye.
did it. You got it right. We're learning. Okay, finance report.
Alrighty. So here's our monthly finance report. Just some general business that I'll start off a couple slides with. As we just mentioned with loan management, must be paid off within 1 year, which we just talked about, because that loan occurred last year, and we'll pay the balance of the principal plus interest. This is what we actually just talked about. So that last note in October, once we know the beginning fund balance of 25-26, we'll either keep the loan in place or paying it off early. So to answer your question.
Yes.
Yep. We had some, just how local receipts came in, which are, as states, they're funds that we collected the district office in our schools. The fund balance for February has been adjusted a good direction. We had originally reported it negative 130.
Negative 131.
Negative 131, and now it's being reported as negative 32. So that's some positive. I mean, it was still a negative fund balance, but it's not negative 131. It's negative 32. Just to put some real numbers on the work that y'all have been doing, that we've been doing to advocate for timber funds. In March, we received $308.10. So I don't know if they sold a tree or where that comes from, but that brings the annual total to $7,000. And those are, keep in mind that there's been years where we used to make millions. So just another piece to add to your other questions, Ed. Yep. So our general, these are our cash balances. So pretty typical what we've been seeing, not.
So the next time we see that loan number, it's gonna have another 500 on there?
The next time we see that loan number, it will be 0.
Oh.
We intend next month to pay off the loan that we applied last June. And then I've already set up a plan with the county treasurer to monitor our balances very carefully through June, where you will see at the end of this report is our next dip before September or October. And I will not apply the loan if we don't need it.
Okay.
But if we do need it, I have a timeline with the county where we have scheduled phone calls to check in, and if I get the paperwork to them by the 25th, they can have it done by payroll.
So this is that part where Brian was talking about this annual average FT. That's why it looks, because it's annual average, it has to deflate at the end because it was higher in the beginning. So as far as this year, though, the positive piece is that, year over year, you're right, we are down from last year, but this year we at least are over budget, which is helpful. That showed the work that you guys did to develop a conservative budget, which is helpful. Revenue as the part of the total, we're in March now, and we've got a little over 18 million of the nearly 35 million we expect. So. Expenditure tracking. This is as we look early on in the year, some of our greatest expenditures are in the beginning of the year as we start back up. But we have we're just under 19 million of our expected 33 million for the year. Revenue yearly comparison. Last year being blue, this year being orange. Again, there's the tricky bump in November because of that apportionment advance, which the fact that we're making it through this year without another apportionment advance is another positive sign. Expenditure yearly comparison, and this is the one that we'll have some more information on, but we've spent $530,000 less this year than we did last year. So, as you guys know, things aren't cheaper. So, so to expand on that a little bit, Brian ran some numbers that were helpful for me to conceptualize that. Up to this point in the school year, we've spent $1.1 million less than at this time that we did in 22-23, and that's without adjusting for inflation. So that number, $22-23, or obviously if we adjusted for inflation, it would be more than that. So again, that's just speaking to, as hard as the resolution is that you just passed, we've continued to do hard work, and hopefully again, it's that call to action to the state to figure it out, because I don't know at what point we can continue to spend less at this rate. You know what I mean?
And this is why our staff are feeling this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Revenue to expenditure. So pretty typical as we look through, that jump in October, that's when we get our levy revenue. Again, this is exactly what Danielle was mentioning earlier. The revenue is just, it's pretty typical for every district, and we've seen that model. I think that model is in here again, but our expenditures are staying pretty steady, but we just know that our revenue isn't. Fund balance, last year compared to this year. Remember, we're not going to see that significant, so that gradual slope in October, November on blue was because of the advance. That steep decline of blue in April through June was repaying that advance. So since we don't have that slope on orange back in October to November, we're not going to see that steep of a decline, because there's nothing to repay in the apportionment advance. Again, here's that piece we looked at, which is, I'm very grateful that this model was developed, because I think it helped me understand to know that we're not alone in this, and it just so happens that this does match our budget almost identically, that we started with almost $1 million, we're going to end with almost $1 million, but we went into, we had to have that negative fund balance because of the way apportionment works. So again, typical pattern. So what Brian was talking about earlier is, if we look in that June piece, we might not go back below zero, even though if you look here, that's debt or negative fund balance. That's where Brian will be able to move pretty rapidly to move that loan over that you just approved if necessary, to make sure we make our obligations, both payroll and AP. Questions? Okay. That's what I have for the finance. Well, I guess, sorry, Russ, did you have any questions?
No, I think I had looked over these figures before, and they do show the work that we've done to reduce expenditures. So I think we're just sort of waiting on the state. One comment I will make, that one of the proposals in the state is to shift the apportionment monthly apportionment formula to a bit later payment within the fiscal year. So we'll, as you were mentioning, we'll get an analysis of the legislative session in general a week or so after the session is over for most BI. But that's one thing we might expect to see, which we will have to, we'll add to the need to cover our negative fund balance for some months, or one or more months, if they actually do that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Russ, because in their infinite wisdom, we already get a lion's share in July and August when we don't have students here. So they're looking to just increase that amount. So yeah, there you have it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Meeting schedule, I don't think we have anything other than just regular meetings right now, right?
Not that I've seen.
So the next one is May 8th.
Yep.
And then May 22nd, same time, same place.
Yep.
Okay. We are adjourned.
All right. Nice job, Brenda.
Thank you.
Thanks for filling in.
Thanks,
Bye,
Russ. See you later. I don't know.